friends, my fine thinkers, my excellent gamers. Let me welcome you back to the Tales of Praxis stream. I'm Aaron Suduko, your host, the founder of WithATerribleFate.com, wishing you the happiest of Mondays. If you haven't discovered WithATerribleFate.com yet, go ahead and check us out. We are your volunteer online publication home for everything to do with analyzing, studying, appreciating the storytelling of this medium, which we all love so much, video games. So if you're a fan of games, if you love their stories, if you want to dig as deep as conceivable into them and understand what makes them tick and why we feel the way we do about them and how they can actually inform the roles we take for ourselves in the real world and how we decide what to do in the world with our own lives, With the Terrible Fate looks at all of that and more. Tales of Praxis, if you're just discovering us here, is a series I've been running for With the Terrible Fate for the last half a year or so, that's focused just on Namco's Tales JRPGs. There are two parts to that. We've got a combination of these streams, which are something like a live book club adventure through Bandai Namco's Tales games, one at a time, and then also analytical articles published on WithATerribleFate.com. And I'm just gonna, I know I'm riffing, I'm just gonna double check real quick the settings here because I hit the stream button, but OBS doesn't seem to be saying that I'm live. I wonder if I toggle the dock, if that's gonna fix it for me. Hey, Pink Moon Neko. Well, that answers my question. Sorry, OBS is telling me conflicting things about whether I'm live or not. So if you've never streamed, OBS makes it easy. They don't make it foolproof. So it occurred to me I should figure out whether we're actually here before we go on. But there you go. Welcome, Pink Moon Neko, my friend. Great to see you. Great to know that we actually exist in the online world. So, Tales of Praxis. Where were we? If you're just finding out about us, it's a study that I'm running for With the Terrible Fate, focused just on Bandai Namco's Tales JRPGs, trying to figure out the language of these games, what it is they're trying to say, what makes them tick, not just as individual games, but as this series-based form of artistic expression, and also how they've influenced storytelling and video games, and so many gamers, individually and as a group, even beyond their own confines. We've been doing that on streams. We've been doing that on written articles for the site. If you didn't get the announcement last week, the most recent article is out as of the end of last week. If you're a fan of Tales of Destiny and Tales of Vesperia, this is about all and only those two games. And I think it's a wonderful representation of what it is that we're really trying to achieve with this series in terms of trying to gain insights, not just from these games in isolation, but by putting them in conversation with one another and getting insights on the games, not in isolation as an analyst, but in conversation with all of the wonderful like-minded gamers who show up for the Tales of Praxis stream. So you'll see that in this article, in fact, are acknowledgments to the stream and particular members of the stream who show up and talk about these games pretty regularly and helped me to develop the views that I shared there. And in fact, I don't know whether Grail and Pottery Breaking will be joining us today, but I wanted to shout them out because a great indicator of what a wonderful feedback loop this is between conversation on the stream and then developing these analyses and interpretations of the games is that after I published this, I was blessed and floored to see that some of the stream regulars already read it, even just a couple of days after I published it, and it is a substantial work. But then we were talking about it on the Friday stream, and they actually mentioned some things in discussion about the article that I hadn't considered or that I hadn't thought to include in the publication. And so I went back and actually added those things to the analysis in light of that conversation. For instance, I was talking with Pottery about the nature of the Entelikeia, and I realized, I used as an epigraph in the article this particular really interesting commentary that Rita has about the nature of mana. And I saw that and wanted to put it forward as really central to understanding what it is for the characters in Tales of Vesperia to reconfigure their world. And then it totally fell out of my head when I was reading Tales of Vesperia later in the article to actually offer that reading of mana that linked the analysis of the game to the commentary in that epigraph. So I threw in a whole other paragraph to cover that. And then Grail made the great observation that, as is actually pretty common in the Tales games, the final bosses, after they ascend to their final forms in these games, upon being defeated by the characters of the party, they revert to their original forms, which is something that I think is really interesting, not only in those two games, but also because, as I just said, the more I was stopping to think about that after Grail mentioned it, the more I actually realized many of the Tales games do that in terms of final bosses who go through several forms, but then go back to where they started at the end of it all, and asking the question of what it is that the characters in the party are able to achieve that allows them to disentangle the bosses from their final forms and call them back to what in many cases is a more human form is, I think, really interesting and salient, and especially in light of the other points of comparison and contrast that I was standing up between Tales of Destiny and Tales of Vesperia that ended up actually at the end of the day being a pretty substantive insight, which I wouldn't have arrived at or thought to add to the publication if not for Grail. So all that to say, I was just talking with a friend of mine actually before I started the stream, and I said to him, I really think of this Tales of Praxis series as the poster child for what I hope With a Terrible Fate can become and what I hope gaming culture can become as we move forward over the next few years. This idea that it's not just a wonderful community of gamers, it's not just a bunch of gamers reading these games on their own terms and coming to develop their own views about them, but it's actually the innovation of a different kind of community, not unlike a lot of what I wrote about Tales of Vesperia, in which everyone is able to contribute their own unique insights to how they feel about the game, and in so doing, and in so sharing those in a positive and friendly context with like-minded gamers, the lot of gamers there are able to develop new views that they would never be able to on their own. The whole indeed is greater than the sum of its parts, which is a very Tales theme. If you're a fan of these games, and I imagine you are, if you've found your way here, and it's totally of a piece with the ethos of With a Terrible Fate and the stance from which we advance our content and analyses about these games. So it's a little bite-sized pitch for everything that we're doing here, an invitation to read the new article in the written part of the series. I so hesitate to put a flag in the ground and declare this at the start of the stream, but I'm going to say that I am very hopeful and 99% sure that I'm going to make it the case that this is the last day we spend with Tales of Berseria, which is why I started on the game stream as opposed to my little solo library shot on the stream, because I want to be able to dive more or less right into it. Not to say that we're sick and tired of Tales of Berseria. Maybe some of you are, but as I've been saying again and again, part of why it's been fun for me to lurk in the post-game here and go through all the side content is because it really does feel to me like every time we turn over another rock, we get a really cool and interesting narrative insight that casts the whole world and story of the game in a somewhat different light. So it's not idle side content. It's side content that actually makes a difference. But that said, we have been doing it for a while. We're eager to move to the next game. I respect that. So we're going to try to wrap up what we can on this stream, and I have a game plan for doing that, which I'll share with you after this. But because I've also been harping on people to contribute to the poll so that real-life JRPG party who goes along on the stream can voice their opinions in terms of what it is that we're going to play next, I wanted to take the stream out of its suspense and let them know what's actually going to be happening. I'll announce on the site's official social media later, but you all are the ones who are most invested in this particular part of With a Terrible Fate's content. So I'm going to tell you before anybody else. The last time on Friday, when I was harping on people to contribute to this poll to help decide what we're going to play next, I was especially urgent about it because the poll was in a dead tie without any contributions from me between the two games we were considering at that point, which were, you will recall, Tales of Graces and Tales of the Abyss. Both great games, both wonderful adventures and experiences, and both of which I'm sure we'll experience together at one point or another in Tales of Praxis. But I said, guys, I don't want to have to be the tiebreaker vote. I'd love to be able to have a consensus because then it'll be all the more fun to dig into the next one. Thankfully, the stream answered my prayers, and we got enough contributions to the poll to go from a dead tie between these two games to 2/3 of the people who voted voting in favor of one game to only 1/3 voting for the other. So not to say that one game is better than the other. If you know me, if you've been on the stream for a while, you know that I really don't believe in ranking stories in many cases, but especially I don't believe in ranking stories in the case of the Tales series, because it really does feel to me as if they express unique messages through unique adventures that are in many ways incommensurable with one another. But that said, we do have a group mind as to what we'll be playing next. So I'll tell you, and then we'll go back into Tales of Berseria. Next up is going to be Tales of Graces. It's a tiny shot. I'll put it a little bit closer in Aaron's little corner of the stream. So, I'm really excited about this. I've spoken a little bit about Tales of Graces on the stream in the past. It's one of those Tales games which I did play growing up, not as early as I played things like Tales of Symphonia and Tales of the Abyss and Tales of Fantasia. I came to it a little bit later, I think probably in, if I had to put a year on it, maybe 2015 or so, which in my mind feels relatively recent, but it is all relative, right? And that is going on 8-9 years ago at this point. So I don't have a vivid memory of all of it. What I do remember is, as I said last time, it's a bit more of a self-contained Tales story, whereas in the stream so far, we've been working in duologies, where we did first Tales of Symphonia, followed by its sequel, and then Tales of Vesperia, followed by its prequel. This one is really, what you see is what you get. It's this one game. It's Tales of Graces F, technically, so what you see is a little more than what Japan originally got. It adds an extra kind of post-game content, which is referred to as a whole fourth act, which I haven't played before. I stopped at that point when I played it as a kid, so there will be some new stuff there. But it's a game that I remember for being really emotionally salient. Certain beats of its story, and especially its conclusion, have stuck with me all the way through to present times. And it's also a game that I remember as hitting, at least based on my memory of it, some very different notes in terms of the elements of existence and humanity that it's concerned with than the games that we've played together on the stream so far. And so for that reason, I think it'll be a really fun game to dive into next, in terms of course, being of a piece with the other Tales games, and of course, we'll have plenty of intertextual conversations, comparing and contrasting it with others, but I think it'll be a little bit of a different flavor than we've gotten so far on the stream, and I would submit, again, just based only on my memory of it, something that is a little more divergent from the games that we've played on the stream than if we were playing Tales of the Abyss next, which everyone who's a regular on the stream knows I have nothing but love for Tales of the Abyss, so that's not a knock against it, far from it. But I think this will add a nice new dimension to the stream to be thinking about things like friendship and growing up, and many themes that show up in basically any JRPG, and we're certainly part of the JRPGs that we played so far, but have a different emphasis and mode of focalization in this one, which I think will be really fun. I'll be posting the schedule, so the stream is going to be going on a few different fun adventures. This is going to be our next main game. As I've also said, I fully intend that next month when Tales of Arise Beyond the Dawn, the new DLC, comes out, we will carve out time to play that right away upon its release, which is going to be a lot of fun. So that will hopefully not take the place of your regularly scheduled programming with Tales of Graces, but add a few additional streams for people who are really interested in going on a live book club, narratively oriented adventure through that brand new content right when it's released, which I'm excited to do. So I hope you take that journey with me, and I'll post those updates to all of the main social media for With a Terrible Fate. So if you're not following us already, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. If you go to withaterriblefate.com, you can sign up for our mailing list. We are very easy to keep apprised of, so do yourself a favor and do that so you don't miss any updates. The other scheduling twist, just for people to know, and hopefully since we're playing Tales of Graces next, I'm not going to spoil it, but we're going to take a bit of an early break in the game, which I think might actually work out well with the pacing of this game and the way it starts off. So I'm all ready and excited to kick this off on Wednesday. And so assuming we're happy with where we leave Tales of Berseria, I'm going to plan for us to do that. But who knows, if we're at the end of this stream and we really feel like we should put another day into it, we can always call an audible. But at least right now, plan is to start this on Wednesday. And then actually we're going to take a small break from the stream just because my dad is going to be visiting me for the first time in a while. He lives out of state through the weekend. So we're not going to have our Friday stream and we're not going to have our Monday stream. And then we'll be back a week from this Wednesday. So it'll be a little bit of a break and then we'll be back to our regularly scheduled programming of Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But like I said, the first few hours of Tales of Graces stand in an interesting relation to the rest of the game. So it might actually be fun timing to start it out and then sit with that for a week and then come back to it the following Wednesday. So I'll keep everyone posted as that all comes together. But that is the tentative plan as of now. So excited to be going on the 5th playthrough adventure on the streamed portion of Tales of Praxis with you all. We're going to have a lot of fun. This is one of those games where I vividly remember the beginning and the end, and the whole middle has kind of fallen out of my head. So it'll be exciting to revisit it with an eye to especially studying that middle like we did with... well, really with all of the games that we did after Symphonia, because I know Symphonia like the back of my hand, but I sort of had that middle third memory lapse with Dawn of the New World and Zestiria and Berseria. So we'll be back in that domain for Graces in a very fun way. And if you watched our Tales of Zestiria playthrough when we did the EX dungeon, Sophie, one of the characters we ran into, if you didn't know her then, we're going to get to know her and spend a whole lot of time with her because it turns out she is from Tales of Graces with no other spoilers. But the other character from that, as it turns out, was from Tales of the Abyss. So we would have gotten more insight into that adventure in the Calyx, no matter which choice we made. I had thought about not taking a break and involving my dad in the stream because regulars to the stream know that typically when I have friends or visitors come over, I will more often than not try to loop them into playing on the stream with me, which is a lot of fun. But my dad, bless his heart, he's a bit older than the rest of us, I would imagine. He's 74 now. So talk about the Eisen of the party, because we found out Eisen is 1,000 years old. Not to call you 1,000 years old, Dad, if for some reason you've stumbled upon this stream. But I thought through it for a few moments, and I imagined in my mind that it would be a bit of a harsh learning curve for him to go from having literally never played a video game to joining in a stream. So I might raise it with him just in case he ends up changing his mind. But yeah, the plan is just to have the visit with Dad, and then we'll dive back in after that. So there you go. There's all the logistics and then some. I don't even think it's fair to say I vamped this time around, but I talked for longer than I had planned, but because we have some good updates and things to be looking forward to. Without further ado, though, we'll be diving back into Tales of Berseria for what will hopefully be the last go-around. As I talked about at the end of last stream, I was having a hell of a time with this EX dungeon, speaking of EX dungeons, just because the time constraint is bullying me. I feel a little attacked by it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to hop out of the EX dungeon. That means we're going to have to drive our way back to this point from the beginning when we go back to it. But since a lot of the challenge the first time was just figuring out the nature of the puzzle, especially with the candle switches, I'm hoping that's going to be a lot more efficient. What we're going to do is we'll go out of the EX dungeon. We're going to spend a little bit of time with our kit, just in terms of upgrading equipment and messing around with especially Velvet and Eisen's art loadouts to see if we can just improve them to the point that the time limits would be a little bit easier to negotiate. I had been hoping to be able to put time into the kit before the stream, but it ended up not being that kind of day. Too many balls in the air. But we're going to do it now. Then we're going to knock off some other stuff outside of the EX dungeon to hopefully at least close out some of the other few remaining threads. So we have enough cat souls now to open enough cat's chests to go to Cat's Corner. That's going to be a whole little side adventure that we can discover together. Then I'm thinking, since we've already made the concession of cranking the difficulty down to simple, we might at that point, after rekitting everyone also, go back and try Milla and Jude again just to see if the battle is tractable. And then after that, I think it'll be worth doing one more run at the EX dungeon, the Heavenly Steppe, just because there does seem to be some cool narrative content hidden away here. After last time we heard about potentially there being a doorway to heaven and the Seraphim being up there, which was a huge hook for those of us who have played Tales of Berseria and had been thinking the Malachim and Berseria are the same thing as Seraphim. Turns out maybe that's not the case after all. So I'd really love to be able to work through that with everyone on the stream, but if Aaron can't figure it out, we might just say it's not going to be something to stream and live with that, and maybe just watch the content on YouTube after this and talk about it as we kick off Tales of Graces together. So that's the game plan. Welcome to Tales of Praxis. It's nothing without all of you, the other members of the real life JRPG party, and let's see what we can work through in Tales of Berseria on this fine Monday evening. And away we go. I'm hoping all the towns are created equal in terms of being able to do the upgrading that we need. But if not, we can always try a few different towns. Maybe we should save before this? Because this is the nutty thing about Tales of Berseria's systems, and I recognize that I'm partly blameworthy just because I'm an old dog and it's hard to teach me a totally new mode of engagement with a game, but I truly feel like I've reached the end of this game without fully wrapping my head around its systems, where I still don't feel totally confident, and it's not second nature even, where enhancement and dismantling will just get me the objectively best weaponry for these characters, in the sense that I would be confident if I were just buying a weapon that worked the way it did in something like Tales of the Abyss or Tales of Vesperia, that, yeah, just look at the stats. It's very easy to tell whether something is going to be better or worse than something else. Which I'm sure is part of why I was also having such a bear of a time with the EX dungeon, just because it clearly expects a certain level of facility with the basic systems of the game, which I still don't have. All right, so let's see. So the way I had been doing this with enhancements in the past was I had basically been, honestly, just looking at whichever one was the most expensive to enhance, and going by that, because it seemed to be, good odds that it was the best weapon. And I think if we try to get into things like managing the skills in the best way possible, that's just going to be beyond the scope of what we've been doing in the stream. So I think to enhance velvets anymore, we need more mithril fragments. I don't know if we have enough mithril in the other items that we have in the party to be able to enhance it further, but I figure it's worth a shot. We can get at least a bit more mithril like that. And mithril daggers. See, I want to be careful, because if we're then... This is where my head starts to hurt, because if we want to give Rokuro mithril daggers, then would we also want to be in a position to enhance those? Well, yes, it doesn't look like there's a lot of mithril to be had, but here's my other thing. I also feel that if we're going to be enhancing anyone's abilities, it makes sense for it to be the character we're playing as, which is Velvet. So, makes sense to get the materials necessary to improve that. So let's see, that allows us to improve that once. It doesn't seem like a big jump, but it's something. Now if we dismantle the rest of the mithril stuff, will we be able to do that one more time? No, but might be enough to enhance Eleanor's at least. Yeah, that does seem better than the other ones we're working with. Yeah, we would need 4 more to enhance Velvet's a further time. I think even if we were to dismantle the one that Eleanor has, that would only give us 2. Alright, so let's call that good for Velvet then. If we move on to Rookro. Well, we can enhance the Kurugane daggers, which seem like... I mean, those were the daggers that were forged from Kurugane, and you need gold scrap to enhance them, so... I feel like it would be hard to get it above his quartz daggers, but maybe it improves somewhat quickly. Let's see. We did save right before that, so... Yeah, I mean... Doesn't seem to have the attack power that the other one does, but... Maybe its skills are just better? I don't know. This is where my head starts breaking down in terms of figuring this shit out. But... we can kind of have the best of both worlds, because we can at least, if we dismantle these quartz daggers... Is there any more quartz stuff? We can improve Rokuro's existing weapon as well, so... that'll be better in either case. We might be able to get something better for Magilu too, though, so I don't want to get rid of all the quartz. Alright, well that's better than it was. How about Laphicet? Seems like the feldspar paper is the best that Laphicet has in terms of magic damage and regular attack. I imagine he's mostly going to be doing magic damage, but... So we would need... maybe more 5 more. Can we get 5 sources of feldspar? Oh, Rokuro has a bunch of feldspar daggers. I'll bet we can do that. Yeah, and Velvet has these feldspar blades. Okay. Already, now that we're finally getting down to some focused thinking about this, I'm starting to see the matrix of the system a little bit more than I did before. Not to say that suddenly I'm a master, but I can at least be confident that what I'm going to do will improve our lot somewhat. Which is a good kind of optimism. Sometimes on a Monday evening, that's the only kind of optimism one can muster. And sometimes that's enough. Is there more feldspar? Eisen has a lot of feldspar bracelets. How close did we get? Ah, no, we need 6 more. I don't think we're going to get there. That's not, I don't think we can buy those items, is that right? Oh, but can we buy and then dismantle these? Is that part of it? No, I think we can only dismantle weapons. Oh, we can buy weapons. Alright. Slowly, Aaron is learning. Okay, so we do have a lot of gold. I'm trying to do the mental math in my head. I think the stream even mentioned this before. Topaz is just evidently the top tier here. I mean, look at this. And I think what Velvet has, Mithril is above that, but for those who don't have something above it. Oh, it looks like we can only buy one of them, but so that's because that'll also give us the material that we need for enhancement. I see. Yeah, so it is. It's less like... This is just so different from the systems I'm used to. It's less like you're buying a weapon as such and more like you're buying it to be able to dismantle and reap the materials from it. Because then what we can do, right, is... If we have... Yeah, Eisen's topaz bracelet, right? Which I think is what we want for Eisen. I mean, his Finger of God makes him much stronger magic-wise, but I feel like we mostly want him as a hitter. That's how we've been using him. Maybe? Decisions. Killing me with all these decisions. Let's do that. I mean, I think we've been most successful with Eisen focusing on physical damage. So that ought to give him the ability to go up. Yeah, there we go. And Eleanor we can enhance. Great. Now what about Magulu? It would be nice to get her something that was also topaz as opposed to quartz. Maybe we should also be working on Laphicet, so maybe it's worth it to spend some time to just travel around to the stores in the various towns, and that'll allow us to buy up the weapons so that then we can just run this enhancement racket a few times. Yeah, because already I can see these topaz papers are going to outclass his feldspar ones. Well, better late than never to be figuring this stuff out, my friends. No, he still needs another topaz fragment. Okay. This is where we just were. So I imagine all these different shops have different items. It's not just like a pool of resources that they share. We'll find out. Yeah, this is all lower tier stuff though. So maybe they don't all carry the stuff we really want. At least now that we know what we're looking for, it should be decently easy to check. Not here. And we can't dismantle accessories. Oh, we can dismantle accessories. I learned so much from you eventually, game. Eventually. Well, it is good because at least insofar as the EX dungeon goes, we know that what we need is DPS. We don't need more armor. So I think that speaks in favor of dismantling the armor, not really worrying about that, which will yield us the materials that we need. Hopefully Aaron won't regret getting rid of all this armor. I feel like we're making the right call. Alright, let's pause and take stock. What can we enhance further now? Velvet's weapon. That seems like a very good thing. Rokuro, I still feel like we might want to look for Topaz for him as well. But Aizen can go higher. Can improve that. And we can beef up Eleanor's spear. Right. Not the most exciting beginning to a stream, I will grant you, but that's why we put it off for as long as we did. And sooner or later, you have to pay the piper, don't you? Okay, these also yield mithril fragments. Nice. I'm still guessing if we were really capital P playing this game, it probably wouldn't be the best strategy to just purely emphasize the attack strength of the weapons versus all the skills and the rest of the equipment, but hopefully it'll allow us to squeak by with the particular challenges that we're facing right now, which is the much more pressing question in my book. Nice. nice. Alright, so now let's go around and see if we can find... What do we want? A topaz set of daggers and a topaz guardian? Topaz doll would be just so nice. Let's see. We're in Zexen. Logris. And while we're doing this, and I'm listening to and enjoying this music in Logris, I'll tell you the brief story of what convinced Aaron with finality this morning that his next phone is going to be an iPhone. So I have a Mac for my laptop, and as I think I mentioned with the collector's editions of these Tales games I've been amassing as kind of an homage to the work that I've been doing for Tales of Praxis, I have been getting these, they oftentimes come with these special orchestrations, like arrangements of the soundtracks in the collector's editions, which is great. And I love using game music for everything, and I found myself thinking especially, oh, you know, it'll be so great to be able to put this music on my phone and go out for a run with it, because I've been running, and always great to do exercise to video game music. And I have an Android as a phone, and I cannot begin to express to you how many hours of my morning I wasted trying to figure out how to get the music from my Mac, where I was able to use my my disk drive to just easily upload the music, bing, bang, boom, done. But then to transfer it onto the Android, it's like physically impossible, like just refused to work, which of course we all know is because the different companies and powers that be go out of the way to make that kind of cross communication basically impossible. But oh my gosh, I was ready to lose my mind over it. Speaking of Tales of Vesperia, I felt like Alexei trying to just, you know, use shoelaces and duct tape to cobble together some kind of system to make it work. And finally I did, but I didn't feel good about it. So the next phone, I think I'm just going to cave to unified technology subservience and become a full-blown Apple boy. I had one for a while and I didn't love the interface, which is why I went back to the Google Pixel, which, if not for its inability to cooperate with my Mac, I would be really happy with. Interesting. So it doesn't tell you on the screen what it breaks down into when you decompose it into its elements. But we know that gives mithril, I think we decided, and this of course gives topaz. And these give topaz. Okay, so that's not the weapons we were looking for, but that at least gives us some more of the elements that we need. Someone have something adamantine? Velvet has this adamant. Oh, that is also very strong. I wonder if it's worth dismantling these adamantine boots. If that would be more efficient than beefing up Velvet's mithril. Do we have any more adamantine stuff? No. Yeah, I think that's going to be better. Good. Okay, so what that means is then we can... I think we probably want to equip that to Velvet now. Oh, it's pretty too. Okay, then we go back, and if we dismantle this, then we should be able to enhance Eleanor's Mithril Spear further. Which I think is what we want for Eleanor. The Valkyrie is rarer, but I think this is better for Eleanor focusing on just pure DPS. Alright, that was progress. Oniomaniac. Maggie's getting all these titles as we do this enhancement and dismantling. Cadmix next. I didn't recognize any of those, at least off the top of my head, of yielding the things we were looking for. No, I don't see anything there either. I don't think there is a town in Loringen, right? No. You thought there is. There is something soothing about that island music, I'll tell you that much.
Come on, take a look.
It is nice to bask in the relaxing glow of having sorted out all the problems in a JRPG world, as opposed to diving into all the problems of a new one, as we will be shortly with Tales of Graces. Two very different vibes, as we all know. I wonder, what's the... No, I think the shop level is consistent across all of these. I was going to say, I wonder if the shops are at different levels and that's why they're giving different quality of equipment for sale, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Oh, we also have a few other side quests hanging out. I'm glad I checked the list here. Yeah, like there was number 2 who turned into a demon on Hexen Isle. Alright, well good. Let's put the pedal to the metal. Hopefully we can knock out a few of these things as this side quest goes. Looks like we have an inn scene. Glad Aaron is still checking. I thought we had knocked off most of the side conversations. I should know better. This is a Tales game. Studying the Empyrean religions in the capital. When we heard the Aminoch faith was in danger, we came here.
The ceremonies and rituals of the
Oh, and now suddenly it is voiced. That was weird.
We're trying to recover them. A number of people moved to Isolt from the village. We're going to try to interview them and record what they know.
This place used to be an inn. Will you reopen it?
And now it's not voiced. What the heck is going on?
I studied Southgand history and am especially interested in the history of local cuisine before Midgand took over. Since some ingredients can only be found here, I thought I could help out with the inn while practicing the traditional recipes.
What sort of dishes will you make?
Tropical moussaka, southern-style mango fried rice, papaya sukiyaki, some other stuff too.
I can't imagine what those would taste like.
Me neither. That's why I've got to use local ingredients to further my research. I don't know how long it'll take, but one day I hope to perfect these recipes and serve them at this very inn.
My dream is to preserve the traditions, rites, and foods of this village for future generations.
I wish you luck.
Wow. Spotty quality control, but all the more fitting to have a one of the final side conversations be focused on food as a way of engaging with past heritage as it comes back to the fore. Grail, what's up, my friend? You definitely made it in a time. As in you arrived at a time. Whether that was on time is another question. To which the answer is a resounding no. Good to see you, my friend. We are re-kitting the party, and Aaron is trying to finally, after however many hours, learn how the equipment system works before we go on our final cleanup adventures and then give the EX dungeon another shot. So you've missed, frankly, what is probably the most boring 45 minutes of content on the stream so far, which is why I'd been putting it off, but that is why we are in now the toxic equipment situation that we are in, so different strokes. I also announced, and this, I am sad that you missed, my friend, but I'll tell you now, the next thing we're going to be playing, I'll make the formal announcement on With a Terrible Fate Social, but to let the stream know first, it's Tales of Graces next. 2/3 of the poll ended up voting for it, to only 1/3 in favor of Tales of the Abyss, so people heard me when I said it was all tied up, and they made their voices heard. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a real fun one. Yeah, they got majority. Not by a single vote either, so if you were worried about that, it was not your joke vote that made the difference. It did, yep, when all was said and done. I was surprised too, but I think it'll be fun. You know, I know it'll be fun, in fact. I think it's gonna, one of the things that I was saying as we were getting ready to do this stream was, I feel like, at least from my memory of Graces, it strikes more of a different tone when put in contrast with the games we've played so far than Tales of the Abyss does. So I think it'll be a bit of a different flavor in a way that will be fun to add another dimension to the ongoing Tales of Praxis. I was surprised too. I had to put my my eyeballs back in my head after I looked at the poll. I didn't even vote. I had no influence on the poll, which is all the more fun in my book. I know, and you said you already have a challenge all ready to go for it, right? So everyone wins when all is said and done. What's in here? I don't think a ball has a shop. I think Lionel Island has a shop. At the wharf? No, it does not. Alright, so our last place is Miercio, and then I think we'll have fished out all the shops. Oh, so Grail, I know we're very excited about the next game and all the serious stuff, but while I'm finishing up the best I can do on the equipment, I am going to ask you, can you give me advice and load up the chat with it before we get to it for the art kits of Velvet and Eisen, because I think that's the other piece we decided was missing last time, since they're the two that I really have been maining. So I think if we get better loadouts for them, then I think we'll be in a much better position. Already the characters are much stronger just by virtue of enhancing their items, so I think we'll be good. Isn't that always the case? We never have enough grade for everything we want to do. I know that feeling all too well, my friend. Yeah, no worries, you got time. That's why I asked you a little bit ahead of time. Alright, found some topaz. Should have started at the final town as I think of it now. But whatever, we got there. Well, the good thing is, even though we didn't put any effort into equipment earlier on, we also didn't blow our gold on anything else, so we at least have the resources now to take advantage of this and give ourselves a shot. Just gonna eat all this stuff. Okay. What do we got? What do we know? Is there any more adamantine we can dismantle? No, that'd be too easy. Oh, we have mithril. Mithril good. Mithril good. So many topaz pendants. Must have just missed those last time. Oh! Yes, alright. More adamantine fragments. I think I can hear my dog sleep barking in the background, which is one of my favorite sounds. Yep. It's like a high-pitched little squeak when she's barking in her dreams. Oh, a fun adventure, I hope. Alright, let's see the position in which that left us. So we can enhance Velvet's adamantine blade some more. That's excellent. Me love that. You suppose? Ah, that doesn't sound very committal. Well, I'm glad it was supposedly fun. A Sunday adventure, you deserve some fun, my friend. Alright, I think the mithril paper, if we can get away with it, is just going to be better for Laphicet. I'm just cognizant that that'll probably be pulling against Eleanor's. I think she also is using a mithril spear. Yeah. Oh, but she might... Unless we go through and find more coarse tempering powder, which I'm sure we can probably find. Alright, well, let's start with Eisen. Man, he really needs a lot of topaz to get that any higher. But that's a big improvement from where he was when we started the stream. Oh, and, okay, if we enhance Laphicet's mithril paper enough to justify his using that, which already it's better, so that's great, then we can get rid of his topaz stuff and reallocate that to Eisen's topaz weapon. So that'll work out. Okay, we're going to need to find more coarse tempering powder. Annoying. So let's dismantle Laphicet's topaz weapons. Great. That should give us enough to enhance Eisen's. Nope. He needs even more. Alright. Whatever. I'm not mad. It was, I mean, it was a long day. It's a very busy time of the year for me, but it's more of just the drudgery of doing all of this equipment stuff. It's it's hard for me to do this with high energy. But that's okay. Hopefully, in short order, we will be able to switch back to the actual fun of the remaining side content, and then the energy will be up. But yes, it is definitely a low-key beginning to the stream. I think Eisen's good enough. Dismantle that. Okay, is there anything that gives us coarse tempering powder that we're not using right now? What? Am I stupid? Does Eisen have an even better weapon that I just wasn't looking at the whole time? Oh, I really wish I could read. Okay, so maybe I did have a long day, longer than I realized if I can't even read this. Okay, so if we can find a platinum scrap, then that will enhance a weapon, which is just far and away the best attack for Eisen. Is there anything that yields that? I feel like I saw a platinum scrap somewhere. And now, of course, I'm not going to be able to find it again. Let's see. I think it, well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment, but I think it's an indictment of this game's equipment system that it's that hard to navigate. I recognize that some of it's on me, but I'm not willing to say it's all on me. I think part of it is definitely the system. I hope, at least. Either that or I should just retire as a gamer. Platinum scrap. Great. Oh, but I'm in the enhance menu as opposed to the destroy menu. And there's not a sufficiently easy way to go back and forth, but at least I know where that was. That was one of Eleanor's accessories. I think. Yes! Alright. So then we can enhance that by 1. Alright, awesome. Its whole thing is it just makes him really strong. That's great. So let's see how we're doing. We can give that to Eisen. That will make him way stronger. And it looks great. Yeah, so those have to be their special weapons because they take special enhancement and they look very pretty and unusual, which is great. Right, so we have that. And then it's Laphicet and Eleanor with mithril weapons and just needing really just more tempering powder. Coarse tempering powder. And then just more quartz to beef up Magilu's quartz doll. That was the best we were able to find with her. And then I think we'll be good. And then we can move on from this. So, good. All right, we have a game plan. That's the hardest part. I might have just said this because I feel like I'm losing track of myself in this miasma of menus, but I really wish there were a way to sort the equipment you have by the materials into which it can break down, because that would make this whole crazy effort we're going through now a million times easier. Although I suppose, though, as I'm thinking about the way in which these things appear to be distributed, it may be the case that the only things that yield coarse tempering fluid also yield mithril shards, in which case we're not going to find any because we already got all of those. Which sounds like a true statement to me, so this may just be as good as it gets for that. So maybe we should just beef up her quartz weapon, Magiluz, and then we can get going. I know, I feel like they took out the complexity that was useful in terms of those sorting systems, Grail, and then they added a bunch of complexity that, at least to me, is just disorienting and not productive. Okay, Rokuro is also still using a quartz weapon. Okay, so it is worth to go through and get rid of all the quartz stuff so that then we can enhance their weapons, and then I think we'll be good. I was noticing too, I forget if you were here when I said this, Grail, but actually as I was looking at the map, I was glad that I did because I realized it had tracked a few little smaller side quests that had totally fallen off my radar. Stuff like going back to the Calyx to confront the the dragonized version of number 2. Little quests like that. So I think we'll have a couple other smaller things to knock off too, which will be a nice way to cap things off. Yeah, so I'm hoping, I mean, we'll see how tonight goes, but kind of my plan is we can push through, and unless we really just run out of time, either we'll run through everything or else we'll hit a wall and we can call it a day. So hopefully I'm cautiously hopeful that this will be the last day of Tales of Berseria, and then I figure we'll start Graces on Wednesday, and then my dad actually is going to be visiting, so I'm going to take a break from the stream on Friday and Monday, and then we'll be back next Wednesday, which I figure, without spoilers for Graces, but if you know, you know, it might actually be really nice in terms of the pacing of the game to start out with a 3-hour segment and then let that sit before we jump back into it the next week. So we'll play it by ear and I'll keep the socials updated, but that's my tentative plan for how we'll be rolling forward from here. You know whom you mean. Well, I'm sure even your cursory assessment of him is better than mine, so I'll still take what I can get in terms of your Rex. I'm sure it'll help us out. Certainly won't hurt anything. Pumper Upper. What a name for a piece of equipment. Ah, we still don't have enough to beef up her sword another rung. I was hoping we would. Oh, we have so much quartz, though. That's something. Oh, that's interesting, though. Should have read this more closely. So it looks like her quartz doll does not give her as much spellcasting power as the gradient doll does. So maybe it's worth looking for silver for that reason. I saw us pass a decent amount of silver, but that was not a futile effort because I think Rokuro's quartz dagger still makes the most sense for him if I'm reading this decently, so we can beef him up some more. Oh, it evolved. That's cool. First time that happened. Daggers of Spring's Harvest. A pair of short swords with blades made of quartz. Nice. That's rather satisfying. Alright, so then now we're going to go back through one more time and look for silver. And then I think we will really have fished out everything we need to feel modestly confident in our party. And I will laugh if, after spending this much time on equipment, we just slice through every single enemy effortlessly. I'm kind of quietly hoping that's what will happen, especially since I made the concession of going down to the easiest difficulty, so I would hope that that experience were possible, but we'll see how things go. We certainly won't have a harder time than last time. I'll tell you that much right now. That's true, it is Berseria. I shouldn't count my chickens before they've hatched. Already I'm licking my lips with anticipation going back to Grace's versus this. I love Berseria. I'm so grateful we played it, and I hope that when we say goodbye to it, we'll be able to take a moment to dwell on all of the great narrative beats that it had and the emotional cadences it took us on, because I think there is so much to recommend this game, and I'm glad we took that time with it, but this part of it is not anything that recommends it in my mind. Put it that way. Oh, fuck. Right at the bottom I saw one. Thought it could escape me. Yeah, there were two of them. No such luck. Oh, there are a few more. Of course, right when I start rushing things at the end is when all the silver slides in there. Alright. Now, Magi should get some spellcasting oomph, maybe? Oh, but she needs the fucking standard tempering powder, which we don't have. Alright, well, let's see if we can find any of that. There was this arc in Supernatural, which regulars know I just rewatched because I'm a masochist, I guess, where this demon, who's basically just a businessman, becomes the king of hell, and he redesigns hell so that the entire experience of hell is just standing in a line forever, and when you reach the front of the line, you just go back to the end of the line. And I mention that because I'm sort of getting the feeling that you'd have a similar effect if you were just sent to hell and made to sort through material breakdowns in this Tales of Berseria menu. It feels a little hellish. Is nothing going to yield that standard tempering fluid for us? Everything is balmy or mellow or pungent or odorless. Give me something regular, please. It's not my favorite idea for a video game, but it is my least favorite idea. I think even 5 minutes is generous. My guess is they wrapped it up in a tight 3. Called it a day. Definitely play tested it. Yeah, and I don't even understand how they do the distributions of the materials across equipment types, because there was so much silver for us to mine out of our inventory, and I'm not seeing a single instance of the complementary tempering fluid that we need, which is just such a waste and disappointment. Unless it's in items that we can break down. Did I sell the standard tempering fluid? I don't think so. I think the only things that I have sold are the things that we stumble upon and just end up with 99 of, which I don't think I've seen tempering fluid come through as those. It's been more of just like the random, like low tier scraps of equipment. Coarse tempering powder. That was something for Fluffy sets, I think. Yeah, I think literally the only thing we can break down... Oh, no, we can also break down Eleanor's weapon that we want her to use and get standard tempering powder. It must just be a really high tier tempering material, obviously, which means we're on the right track in terms of our weapons, but also means that it is scarce. But, bright side, I think that means we can just be happy with our equipment and call it what it is. So Laffy set, just gonna run this. Those are some very cool looking daggers. See, so I do appreciate discovering and improving the unique weapons. That strikes me as worthwhile. Yeah, being able to enjoy them is very cool. Oh, the way Eisen's eyes follow you when you rotate him is a little creepy. Looks like he's getting ready to beat me up. Alright, now, is there anything we can cheat out with the equipment to make him better? We can give him a little bump in. That's true. That is just how he looks. Casually prepared to beat the piss out of you. Well, I feel like even a small bump from the equipment to his strength is enough of a bump. Yeah, I mean, especially on the easiest difficulty, I feel like we just have to do whatever we can to beef up the attack of our hitters. It's DPS, right? It's just what we were talking about last time. So we can just do a quick run through for that, and I think that'll be good. This may accidentally turn them into glass cannons, but really, until we go back to Milla and Jude, I don't think that should matter too much at this point in the story. On easy mode. This Velvet, Laffy set. Great. Laffy said I don't really feel as part of the DPS crew, so I'm not as worried about him. You're not a part of the Turbo team. Rokuro is definitely a part of the Turbo team. As is Spear Girl. That's true. It's just the glass cannonness of the world, Grail. You make a good point. So we might as well lean into the skid, as they say. Alright, well, let's see how that goes. We're opening up some titles. That always makes me feel like we're doing something good. That's why it's so desolate. It's just a paper-themed adventure. Alright, so next up... we were going to go and open 3 cats boxes so that we could go and face the Dark Turtles. I think you can. God knows we've said worse. Okay, so... I forget whether I was able to open the first cat's box. I'll just start with the second class 4 zone. I don't think I was able to open that one. Perfect. And now Magilu can dress up as a Norman. Everyone wins. And next. Now I suppose I should remember to heal us at some point to go to an inn. And unless the required amount magically went up since the last time I checked, we should only need one more. And then it should be really easy. The guide said once you open the 38th box, the invitation to Cat's Corner is right inside it. I do! Yes, give me Eisen and Velvet, please. Do I suppose I have to swap Eisen in to do his arts, I think is how it works. Alright. Throw some flows at me. Actually, you throw them. I'll grab this last cat's box while you do that. And Velvet, too. Eisen and Velvet, and I think we'll be good. My hero! This right here is the true benefit of the real-life JRPG group mind, my friends. Nothing like it. Boy, seeing all of the names of his art side by side, Eisen has some pretty cool art names that are all very him. I hadn't really considered that until we stopped and worked on them like this. All right. Cheers, Grail, my friend. Thank you. Throw me Velvet when you can, too, and then I think we might have a fighting chance. Cat's invitation! An invitation from Cats that says, I want to see Mew in Talisan. Alright, so we do actually have to travel. But it tells us where to travel. The long and winding road that terminates in a meow. Oh no! Not the foreshadowings of the Turtles! Anything's but that!
Now face the Lord of Calamity!
Pretty cool. I don't know if we'd seen that swap in yet. What, you got auto-modded? For what? I didn't even see that come through. I usually see it in OBS when it holds something in moderation. Is it one of her arts names or something? Weird. Yeah, I didn't get the X set. Oh no. The information was too useful. It didn't want me to have it. Well, you can try again if you want, or I can just die. Where's Infernal? There's Infernal Torrent. Okay. No! Impossible! The Gremlin's Mischief. It's a great name for an inn. I missed that before. Alright. While we continue to nail down Velvet's tech, we will journey to a magical, mystical place that may be familiar to those who were with us during the Vesperia adventures. If I can find the cats. That is so weird. And it doesn't make any sense that it's not even showing it to me. Like what message you're trying to send. Here we go. Maybe? Boy, this cat's is a little harder to find than I was hoping. Yeah, geez, that might be the case. It's so weird. I wonder what it is. Maybe we can figure it out once you get the arts out there. Oh, there he is. What a specific hideaway. All right.
Meow, 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 meow. Your attention please for an important announcement. To commemorate all your hard work saving my friends, I'd like to invite you to come to Cat's Corner.
Yes, 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 yes.
Awesome!
But we don't have any business there.
Now hold on. Cat's Corner is a sort of phantom place that's never been plotted on any map before.
That's all I care about.
A chance to explore it.
If it's home to a lot of cats, I kind of want to see it for myself.
Denied. It's a waste of our time.
Oh, come on, Velvet.
Velvet, you have no concept of how much work we put into finding this place.
Exclusive members-only club. Nobody but nobody would turn down an invitation.
Exactly. You should be grateful for this opportunity.
Just think of it as a new experience. Besides, aren't you even a little bit curious?
I can't believe this. You guys are starting to sound more casual than the cats now.
Well, if you ever feel like visiting Cat's Corner, just say...
I don't even know where to begin with that, Grail. That's nuts. Wow. So intensely banned that I can't even see or referee it myself as the streamer. That's wow. Yeah, I don't know where to start. At least we figured out what the problem was. Alright, well let's take care of that before I forget. Turn Thorn, Avalanche Fang, Shadow Flow, Slag Assault, right? Yeah, perfect. Alright. We're in the game now. Buckle up, friends. New kit, new attacks. If ever we were to have a chance, it was now.
Cat's Corner.
I'd never have guessed a place like this existed.
What an adorable little hamlet. You can feel your motivation to get stuff done just floating away.
And look at all the cats!
It's so peaceful here. Kinda makes me want to sit down for a big feast.
Look, over there. Is that the cat's pajamas? I've heard stories.
Oh no! Velvet, don't tell me you're...
Are you allergic to cats?
I'm gonna do my best, buddy.
Are you gonna be okay, Velvet?
Of course.
Seems she is. Seems she is, Pink Moon Echo. That's why she was trying to stay away. Velvet the Allergic. That is kind of funny that the previous Lord of Calamity, whom we see in this game, is allergic to cats, whereas the Lord of Calamity in Tales of Berseria is basically a giant glorified evil cat. Kitty Beard! Who knows? Maybe it's the Therianization of weird ghost hair. That's right. The deep lore of the foreshadowing between the games.
I travel the world to reclaim hidden treasures, meow. Doesn't that just make you a cat burglar? Big words coming from a pirate, meow. You guys pilfer and pillage anything you can get your paws on. You prattle on about how romantic your life on the sea is, but you're just a bunch of ruffians.
Damning words from a cat.
I'm sorry. Good. As long as you know where we stand, meow. I've got my own ship, and wait till you hear what I named it. It'll make your whiskers spin. I call her Von Meowtia of my youth.
And that's the story of how Eisen sued a cats for copyright infringement. Because don't forget, we know from an earlier conversation with Magilu that suing people is something you can do in the Desolation. There's somehow the legal and judicial infrastructure for that. No, I think Heldelf is just a demon. It is interesting, though, because,
Oh, don't tell me.
remember, we do see him absorb Gramps at the end, so that might be an indication that he's a Therian, even though they never really talk about it, and to my recollection, we don't see it come up anywhere besides there. But that is, I mean, that's a very Therian thing to do. And if he's not a Therian, it raises the question of what he was doing there. I mean, I feel like we have to go with Steve Harvey, right? I trust Artorias as far as I can throw the embodiment of a Nominod in the giant sky.
Cats can have different dialects depending on where they were raised, Meow. I'm from a small hamlet in the Nagoya area.
What's unique about your dialect?
Amazing!
Sorry, I have no idea what you just said.
I said, this fried shrimp is amazing. Cool, huh?
Wow. So how do you say brother in your dialect?
Mueller.
Sister?
Mueller.
Mother?
Mueller.
They all sound the same to me. Can cats where you're from tell the difference?
Of course. It's all about the nuance.
I think it's a bit too much to wrap my head around. Oh yeah, what about father?
Meower.
Father is father.
Of course.
That one's normal.
Meow insulting. No, that see what you meant, you know.
I'm sorry.
I forgive you.
That's very kind of you.
But the proper way to apologize in Nagoya dialect is, you know, wait for your forgiveness.
I do love that even the campiest, silliest part of this game is all about things like linguistics and various microcultures by region and everything with which the main game is preoccupied.
The Paw Pro Wrestling BNA World Catnip Cup Heavyweight title matches tonight, Meow.
I feel like that has to be the kind of thing where it depends on which games you grew up with, Grail. Because, like, I would say Cats, but I would say Cats because my first game was Tales of Symphonia and Turtles didn't exist yet at that time, right? Whereas I feel like if your first exposure to the series was through the special weirdness of Toidles, I could definitely feel you being more endeared to them than to the Cats.
The rules are simple. The contestants need each other with their paws. The first to make a sound loses or meows out. So, is there like a countdown or something? Yup. A purr count starts when one fighter starts purring. Purr for 3 seconds and you're out, meow. Are there any illegal moves? Grabbing the back of the neck and nibbling are both forbidden and incur heavy penalties. It sounds like a lot of fun. I'd love to try it myself. There's going to be an Anything Goes division in the next Agarte Cup. Any race can participate. Just put on a pair of cat ears and you're in, meow.
Meow. Course tempering powder. That was something we needed at some point. Not the one we were looking for more fervently at the end of the equipment enhancement, but still. Isn't the truly based opinion antlions above all? The secret and truest answer? Muchas gracias. I don't even know what we need anymore, but this has a bunch of great stuff. We are also now starting to run out of gold. Can we buy the shop out? Is that an option we have? It's tight. No, I don't think we can. Well, before we go crazy, let's see how this upcoming cameo fight goes, and then we can evaluate whether we need to put more time into weapons. Because we improved ourselves a lot, and we are still playing on easy, so I'm cautiously hopeful that we'll be in better standing now. It's true, we kept talking about how we didn't have access to puns in this game, but between that great scene by Celica's grave and now all the cats, I feel like we're getting an entire game's worth of puns in a few key sequences. All the cutscenes. I love. And these are all the skits. Love it. All right. Oh, and an herb. That seems like a very specific association, Grail, but I feel you. Oh, why is nothing happening here? Is there something else we have to do? Yeah, we might have to... You know, now that we have access to Cat's Corner, this might be when we go back to what we were trying to do way earlier in the postgame and go to Artorias' throne and find the Lots cats. Actually, I'm not even going to look it up. I remember that. Because you remember, that was where we fell off of the Dark Turtles questline because we went to the throne and there was nothing to do there. Because, I think, we didn't have access to Cat's Corner yet. So hopefully, it'll be easy enough to just pop back there and take care of that. Yes, indeedio. I know. It can feel its end coming and it's trying to prolong it. Well, the worst case scenario, if we do find ourselves back on the track to making progress, we can always, especially since there's going to be a break in the stream Friday, Monday, we can just spend Wednesday as the last day on Berseria and then take a few days off before we start Graces. That might end up being a nice cadence anyway, so we can't go wrong. And as long as we're back and making progress and actually getting interesting stuff out of it, I don't mind taking longer. It was more of the Aaron beating his head against a wall, unable to make progress. That was the insufferable part for me, and I'm sure you. Ah, yes. I remember in August of 2021 when Aaron said he would be wrapping up Tales of Berseria tomorrow. I feel like the dad driving the car on the long road trip and telling his kids in the back seat, "It's just around the corner, kids. We're about to get out, don't worry. Just sit tight for one more minute." I don't have kids, but Tales of Praxis has already turned me into a gamer dad at heart. There! You son of a bitch! You know how much time I wasted looking for you? Streams and streams ago?
For your trip, then look no further than Lost Cats' corner store. Meow.
What? No white turtles?
Maybe he caught a cold and decided to stay in bed and sleep.
Just the opposite, Meow. You might even say he's had an awakening, Meow. He's seen the truth of this crazy world, Meow.
What are you going on about?
Whatever it is, I'm worried about him. Then you should
Grail, I think you are absolutely right. Which would be a lot of fun, but I think absolutely by the end of that stream it would be like Tales of Praxis 6.9999. Like we would live in Tales of the Abyss for quite a long time and get a lot out of it. So I mean, I'm excited for when we do undertake that journey together, but I think that's exactly what it would be like.
got to show up, Meow.
Cat's Corner, huh?
Every side quest, a discourse on every line, key word choice, talking about the names that you didn't realize meant anything. It's funny, I had a moment like that when I was talking with my friend earlier because he was asking, and you know, I don't really play a lot of JRPGs, but why is it that they all have these wild names that don't seem to make a lot of sense? And I explained to him one of the many cool things that I love about the Tales games, where most of them also have characteristic genre titles that kind of define the expectations a player can have for what they're going to get out of the story beyond the idea that it's just a JRPG. And so I told him, for instance, I can't remember if this is it word for word, but there's this game, Tales of the Abyss, and it has this characteristic genre title, game in which you will discover the meaning of life. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Grail, I'm sure you can call me out on it if that's not, but 99% sure that's what it is. And he was like, oh yeah, because meaning of life, I hear Abyss, and that's definitely the first thing I hear of. That definitely sounds optimistic. And I was like, well, actually, the Abyss, if you think about it for long enough and uncover the layers of meaning within the game, is a reference to the concept of the Abyss in the Sephiroth in Jewish mysticism, and it actually uniquely points the way to discovering the meaning of life in an optimistic and redemptive way. And he was like, okay, fine, Aaron, I'm not going to ask you any more about Tales of the Abyss now. So, ask a question, get an answer.
What's that song?
Just wait, Grail. Behind every joke, there is a hell of a lot of truth.
Them Turtles. It's called The Hymn of Turtles. It's an old family song. A real blast from the
I think that's the same thing he was singing when we came here in Zesty, right?
It's a
If memory
song.
serves.
One meant to put chills down your spines. But it's almost a waste to sings to use, pipsqueaks.
What? I don't understand a word you're saying.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Soon
Close enough.
Trust me.
Very great background music.
You like how nice and dark this shell is?
Hold on, are you white turtles?
You've turned down a dark path. A path that yous all sent me down.
Oh! Oh no, we created the Dark Turtles?
And now I'm gonna cook you.
Oh no! Not the consequences of our own actions.
And not just laugh at it. I'm gonna cook yous a new one too, sister.
Don't worry, Grail. We'll get to Zilia.
Eisen and Magalu.
We'll have a lot of fun with that too.
I'm up to my shell in debts. And it's all because of yous guys and your discounts.
Oh my god.
I'm so in the reds. I got sold off to be made into turtle soup.
I think it's more of a half mask like Phantom of the Opera or something.
Planning to make a whole feast out of me.
Or like Joker's mask in Persona 5, something like that. But yeah, with some of those close-ups, it's a suspicious look for sure.
I still don't understand a word you're saying.
I want it all's back. I want the good old days when I was young and now
Everything
my
is a reference
heart is
somewhere.
Days all gone dark as the soy sauce I was marinated in. Yes. Now
Once we're done, we'll get all the references.
Dark titles. Because of yous, my old life is gone forever.
Damn. Tough to argue that logic.
In my heart.
That must have been quite the soy sauce.
No mercy!
Oh, I missed the timing on that. Oh, God bless. I do think I can even feel it in the party, like having re-kitted and also being on simple difficulty, like I think we'll hopefully be able to get through the rest of the stuff now. It just feels different. You can't interrogate it, it'll all fall apart. Eleanor stole our Mystic Art frame. Spear Girl, why? I imagine he still will, right? It'll just probably be like only one and on a much lower frequency. He's knocking Eisen down, adding insult to injury. He was always the based. He just took his time to reveal himself. It is kind of funny to me, this idea that, like, White Turtles was the capitalistic center of this entire universe, and the party like corrupted him and destroyed his belief in the world by taking advantage of his own capitalistic framework and like plunging him into debt just by taking advantage of him as a shopkeeper. That's pretty funny and like surprisingly trenchant again for a joke storyline at the end of a JRPG.
My body, it feels salty yet sweet.
So we didn't get a mystic art, but honestly, I feel like that's a little bit of karmic justice for the nonsense we went through with Dark Turtles at the end of Zestiria. So everything gets cosmically balanced out.
This is it then.
Careful, Velvet. If you eat too much salt all at once, your blood pressure will go through the roof.
Not my blood pressures.
Truly, he's not a very appetizing color.
Though he does remind me of those noodles from Eastgand.
I wasn't actually going to eat him. Although we do like our flavors thick.
Grail, I thought you wanted to be done with Berseria. Now you're the one prolonging it. For my suffering.
But I still low in sodium. And with plenty of omega-3s, I good for your skin too.
More pride than sense.
It's not like I wants to tell yous all this, but I've been marinated so much. I's got no life ahead of me, but to become the best stews anyone's ever tasted.
That's so delicious yet tragic.
Velvet, don't make the guy cry.
How is any of this my fault?
Simmer down, Meow. Don't worry, Dark Turtles. You're not cooked yet, Meow. As long as you don't lose hope, a better tomorrow is sure to come along, Meow.
Your words are too kind. It's like more salt on my wounds.
It sounds like what you need is the cat's pajamas, Meow.
Cat's pajamas?
It's a fun place to unwind, have a few drinks with friends, and cleanse the soul of all life's parts.
It's a bar. It's a fucking bar for suspiciously animalistic demi-humans.
Even one as dark from soys as mine.
Where there's a will, there's a way. It's not a matter of can or can't, Meow. The cat's pajamas is where go-getters can get together. And grown-ups only. You have to be 2,000 to enter.
Well, not even Eisen can get in yet.
That's no good. I's just a 999-year-old juvenile.
With turtles, nobody can tell the difference anyway. Meow. Don't sweat the small stuff. That's the key to getting the most out of cat's pajamas and really life as a whole. Meow. Take that to heart, and you can tell everyone you got the.
It wouldn't be the best fate, Grail, but it also wouldn't be the worst fate in this world.
You know, I think I'm starting to feel ready to take on the world again, like I used to.
I suppose that's true, though. If asked, would you rather be a Turtles or a Cats in this world? I think it would be easier to add a bunch of Zeds to the end of your words than saying meow after everything.
Dark Turtles. We'll get you set up with all sorts of nice drinks, Meow.
So, what is the cat's pajamas?
Is that right? Do we know that Zestiria is 1,000 years later? Or does it just feel like roughly 1,000 years later? I feel like that's one of those things that could go either way.
Well, Eleanor,
I haven't the slightest idea.
It sounds like a good time. We should go and check it out.
Let's not. That's not a path worth going down.
After all that, I still have no idea what the point was. Maybe there wasn't one to begin with.
It's like the exact same conversation that Saray and his gang had.
Events hold some significance. Just what'll become of that turtle's heart after the cleansing, though, is hard to say.
I don't know. I'm suspicious of that. It's like, I understand that it's far in the future, but also you can't trust what people say online without the references. Like, let's just say I stumbled upon some interesting things on the Tales wiki about Tales of Vesperia as I was working on that article, which just are not borne out in the game. And I feel like especially in a game like this, part of the point is something that they do emphasize across this game, where if something is sufficiently in the past, kind of the details of it are lost to time, so you just know it's long ago, and here are some general sketches of what happened, but you don't really know exactly how long ago it was or who the players were. That feels to me very of a piece with the backbone of this world. No, I'm talking about Asalia. Well, remember, with Vesperia, part of my whole point that I write about is that a lot of the background of the world is in a significant amount of chaos and disarray. And so there were a few things, like especially around topics such as the Great War and its relationship with the Adephagos and Zaude, when there were just a few weird sentences where you could tell that people were trying to connect things that were not connected by the game, and in some cases events that were pretty far apart in history without a clear connection, like things that happened all the way back with the Adephagos and the creation of Zaude versus things that happened in the Great War 10 years prior to the story. So it's, don't get me wrong, it's by and large accurate and it's a great resource, but it is also not absolute in terms of its accuracy in my experience. Meow, meow, meow goes the song, yes. It's a good song. There you go, we're getting more Sophie in anticipation of our Tales of Graces run. Huggable Sophie. We'll have to judge for ourselves how huggable Sophie the character is when we get there. Alright, there you go. That's some side content down.
Oh, don't tell me I have the hiccups now.
Now, I'm gonna suggest, since I remembered these other side quests, let's try to knock off a couple of these other smaller ones. I was especially interested, I was delighted to remember that we still had number 2 waiting for us in Hex and Isle. So why don't we see if that's something we can deal with now? I think that's a place to which we have to sail, though, so we can go back to a port. A man of taste, I see. Oh, Grail, while we're talking about Vesperia and Tales of Destiny and that article that I published, I mentioned this at the top of the stream, but you weren't here yet, so I'll mention it again just to express a further debt of gratitude to you, speaking of debts. I was thinking more about that great conversation that you and Pottery and I had on Friday, and the really great and thoughtful point that you made about the way in which Ultra Chronos unwinds back to just regular Chronos separated from the energy of the Eye of Atimony after all said and done and the party has whooped his ass. And I thought about that and the discussion that we had about it, and I thought that was worth adding to the article, all the more so because after I sat back and thought about it, I reflected and realized, basically the same thing happens with Duke, where he ascends through his various forms, and then when the party finally beats him in his final form, he goes back to regular Duke. And so when I found myself sitting down and asking, well, why is that the case and what makes the difference in terms of like the meaning of this for Duke going back to normal versus Chronos going back to normal, it actually tied in, I felt like, quite nicely with a lot of the other stuff that I was wrestling with in the article. So wanted to thank you for that as much as everything else, my friend. And if you haven't gone back to the article in the last little while, feel free to dip back in and see if you can spot those changes. It was fun, though, because like I mentioned at the top of the stream, when I sat back and I was thinking about that, I realized like that was something that was invisible to me in these games before I stopped and thought about it. But if you do stop and think about it, that happens with a lot of the final bosses. Like, I won't go through them all because I don't want to spoil for other people who haven't played this game or the other game. But if you think about the various forms of the final bosses in Tales games, oftentimes it'll be like an individual who, through the forums, evolves to something that doesn't totally resemble who they were, but then after the party defeats them, they revert back to their original form. So I feel like that's an interesting way to compare and contrast the games and think about, well, how is that same device being used in the different games to highlight the different arcs that the heroes and villains go through? So that was fun to think about. I added something in the third act of Vesperia about the symbolic content of mana also after our conversation with Pottery about the different journeys of the Entelikeia, which was great because it was something that, like, if you read the epigraph of the piece, it's directly in reference to Rita's introduction of mana into the world, and then I just totally forgot to go back to it in the third act because it was many, many words later. So it's a good reminder to me of, oh yeah, I had meant to make that point that ties a lot of this together in my head, and I totally overlooked it, so no wonder it was a bit of an open question when we were talking about it, so hopefully that part reads a little more tightly now as well. Yeah, let me know what you think when you do. Obviously no rush, but I figured if anyone would be interested, it would be you. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think from where I come down on it. I think definitely, I mean, Duke certainly seems to retain more of his humanoid form, at least, than Kronos does, certainly. But I think they're both kind of, they take on these distortions of their form based on their distorted understandings of the world. And the way in which I think they're disentangled points back to a lot of what I talk about in the rest of the article in terms of how in Destiny it's all about putting the past to rest, and Kronos isn't the kind of thing who can be saved, nor probably who would want to be saved in any way, whereas Duke, when the outside influences on him in terms of his narratives of his relationship with Lucifer are unwound, what's remaining is an individual who can tell a different story about himself and actually befriend the party and contribute to new communities. Yeah, but I mean, I thought about Symphonia, and you can cash that out in different ways, but I think there's at least a reading of it you can give where you sort of you're calling Mythos back to his original form even more so than he first appears before you. Because remember, you get to Vinheim, and the first vision you see of Mythos is the like disturbing doll Yggdrasil version of him before his crystal comes back in contact with that, and then it's only like through the fight that you go first from like more abstract forms and then back to like the truth of Mythos as just this imprint of himself that remains in the crystal. And then, right, you put the crystal to rest after that. So I think it's sort of again, and that's kind of what I mean in terms of comparing it across games. Like, it's sort of a variation on a theme in terms of like using the same sort of like climactic buildup of a boss and resolution of the boss, but in a slightly different way according to like the language and contours of the world and story you're working within. I could say a lot of the same stuff about Tales of the Abyss for sure. And even Zestiria before this, right? Like Heldolf, all the way from like Lord of Calamity to giant fusion with corrupted Mautellus, all the way back down to the most human you see Heldolf throughout the course of the whole game.
Looks like he's recovered all right.
Oh, come on! Give us a break already! I bet even Inominat couldn't stop this thing!
That line still just, like, the stuff of nightmares, it haunts me. There are so many line readings like that in Symphonia, it's just, oof. Like, I know everyone's first Tales game is their favorite Tales game, but so many little moments and ways that the voice actors read those lines are just stuff that get ground into your bones. Like they definitely live inside you for years afterwards.
Or does he look like he's even stronger?
It isn't your imagination. It looks like he's absorbing the malevolence from all around the Calyx.
There's still time to run if you want to. This dragon is no joke.
I'm sorry, Silva. I used you so I could escape. But this time, I won't run away.
Ugh.
You're going down, Silva! No tricks. Just a straight up battle.
The sad practice of putting heartbreaking dragons to rest in the desolation. Ugh. We've had a really sad amount of experience with that at this point. No. But if you're a dragon, the perfect picture of malevolence confronting your formerly enslaved partner, I don't imagine you'd be that inclined to let him finish speaking. It's the one true dragon track. Man, that was one thing that I was loving about downloading all of the soundtracks to these games that came with the collector's editions, because Grail, I know you obviously know all the names of the songs chapter and verse, but I didn't. I just, I'm familiar with the songs from having played through the games. I never really looked them up, so I was amazed at some of the names, which I know we're in the middle of a fight, but I have to take a second to read some of these names for people who are not as familiar as Grail is with them. I mean, all of the games, I should be clear, have amazing soundtracks and oftentimes amazing names. And Sakuraba, the main composer for the series, is a brilliant mind, and everyone who loves the Tales games should know his name. But our dear friend Matoi Sakuraba has some great names for the Zestiria songs. Names such as Uphold Your Will with a Sword in Hand, which obviously is very in keeping with the article I just published. Mountain Ruins Overflowing with Passion for History. The heartbreaking fact that Rose's theme is called The One Protected by the Wind. Competing with the Honor of the Land. The essence of an adventure is exploration. Of course, Rising Up, as Grail called out. And then, how about this for the name of a song for a final battle, for the final battle of Zestiria? The chaotic calamity that's won with a god. So, oh man, I loved that because those names are all so cool, and they also so poetically touch on like many of the main themes that we picked out as we were studying Zestiria over the course of the game. So amazing because we spend so much time talking about the way in which the music contributes to and mirrors the themes of the game. Great that even in the presentation of the songs and the naming of them, it's evident that they are intended to reflect and embody the themes as such. So had to make a slight detour for that. That's fair, Grail. Yeah, I love being able to orchestrate the soundtrack of my life in that way. The more epic the JRPG song, the more minor reason to play it in your real life. But that's just it. Like for me, the over-the-topness of those names so perfectly mirrors what we talked about in many different dimensions of Zestiria as we were playing it, with how the world feels larger than life and too big, and the story feels too epic. Like, I feel like that's part and parcel of the aesthetic that they were trying to create for this kind of epic journey of the shepherd. So, too dramatic, yes, but too dramatic for Zestiria? I kind of feel like it's right on the nose, you know? It's also, I'll just add very quickly and then I'll finish this fight, but it's a very nice parallel, that name, the chaotic calamity that's won with a god, to then the final boss track of Berseria, the one who possesses the power of God. And nice how similar yet slightly different those are, in the way that even though one's a shepherd and one's the Lord of Calamity, the final bosses of these two games, as we've seen, strike kind of unsettlingly similar notes when seen through certain lights. And again, I know I've said this before, but truly it's moments like this that spur me on to do all of the optional Berseria content, because again, this is a side quest that, had I not looked at the map and seen an indicator of it, I would have completely forgotten about it, and it includes full cutscenes. Like, it's a key aspect of the game. And now we have the origin of this skeleton that we encountered in Zestiria.
One time, when Lady Teresa was punishing me, Silva stood right by my side, just like this. He didn't say a word, but his presence was a comfort.
I see.
Sorry, Silva. And Velvet, back at Helivis. Thanks for taking me with you and getting me out of there.
That was basically kidnapping, really.
Maybe, but I want to thank you all the same.
You don't have to, Fee. Really. You've come a long way. That's because you put in the effort, not me.
The sensation. Is the calyx still functional?
Yeah, I think there might have been another dragon inside of the Calyx Grail. That might be what you're thinking of. And then, of course, Silva turned into a dragon, and I think we might have had a small fight against him, but it was one that didn't resolve because we were trying to get away from a Nominat, so that might be what you were thinking of. I know, that was an interesting turn of phrase for me, too. I'm wondering whether it was maybe translated in a funny way. But it was a pretty specific like gesture that the dragon died in, also kind of like a sort of supportive gesture of submission, like the Pieta or something like that. So I imagine that's probably what Laphicet was pointing to.
Well, seems we're done here.
I wouldn't be so sure about that if I were you.
What do you mean?
The Calyx is a series of ancient ruins unearthed and brought back to life by Melchior. But now that he's kicked the bucket, Artorias might be the only one who can actually control the place. Oh, you know, you can never be too sure of what the future holds, right? That's all I meant.
That's really interesting. I mean, obviously because of everything we see in Tales of Berseria, but also just I think that's the first time that we've heard Magilu's inner dialogue of what she's seriously thinking to herself when she flippantly brushes something off and jokes with the party. So, of course, we have plenty of reason to suppose that that's how she's thinking throughout the whole course of the game, but it's nice to have a kind of explicit window into the fact that that's actually how she's processing things in her head versus what she says to the rest of the party. Can I find an easy way to tell you where I put it? It's about where you'd expect. So the commentary about Ultra Chronos was right where that image of Ultra Chronos is, and then the complimentary stuff about Duke was right near the end where he was. Let me see if I can pull it for you. Yeah, so if you search Ultra Chronos, that only shows up in that little discussion, and I added basically like a further sentence or two underneath that GIF of Ultra Chronos to talk about that. And then with reference to Duke, where did I put that? The added commentary about Duke is right before the screen cap, which I love, of Repeat after the Colosseum when Rita is joking about him being a philosopher, which was the perfect thing for this article. So right before that, it's basically, it's a button on the commentary on Duke, which to my point, I think it just kind of recapitulates a lot of what I've already said about him as opposed to adding a lot of new stuff. But it talks a little bit about, I think that's the only sentence I added. Yeah, it talks about basically what it means for him to let go of the Radiant Winged One and instead be called back to community by the party, like we talked about. And then the further paragraph that I added about the symbolic nature of mana, I guess is how they pronounce it in Tales of Vesperia for being technical, that was a full paragraph. It's the second paragraph right underneath the image of Baul evolving as an Antilocheia in the discussion of the third act. So sandwiched in between that and when Rita's talking about getting the stuff together to make a Dein Nomos. That's the new stuff. Yeah, I guess it is kind of surprising to see her inner dialogue since it's otherwise not a game that really shows a lot of that inner dialogue from party members besides Velvet, but I don't know, didn't you kind of feel that with the way she was sort of skillful meansing the rest of the party and like being such a jokester but also guiding them along like the path that she really believed in, that she kind of had those two tracks to herself? That's how it felt to me throughout the game, especially in the like the everything from her confrontation with Melchior, aptly enough, in the Calyx here onwards. Which maybe, as I say it, maybe that's part of why it took coming back here and reflecting on Melchior and the Calyx for us to actually hear her inner dialogue. Alright, I figure we can take on this Code Red demon since we happen to be here anyway, and then we can... Yeah, I think it might be worth it to at least give the EX dungeon another try on Wednesday, and then that'll be nice just to have one playthrough wrapped up before the break, and then give everyone a slight breather before the next one. Because I feel like we have a shot now, and there are enough other side quests, I think, to keep us going for the rest of the hour here. Feels great. Yeah, thank you so much. It was really what I needed. Because I don't have a beat on the way the game wants you to combine these arts, and you clearly do. Like, it feels much more fluid than what I was working with before, so that's great. I still don't love everything being elemental based, like we talked about quite a while ago. Like, that's a tough thing for me to wrap my head around in a Tales game, but even having just a better art layout overall, I think, helps with the overall DPS and enemy management, irrespective of elements. Feels great for Aizen too, by the way. I was completely right in thinking that you working through him on the fly would be better than my, like, reflective consideration of him. Works super well. I think that's a fair point, Grail. Yeah, if there were just one of those things for me to keep an eye on, then I might be incentivized to learn it and wrap my head around it. Having two intersecting with one another definitely makes it harder. Armory Asterite 9. Grants 1 additional initial soul to characters wearing equipment that has been enhanced a combined total of 45 or more times. Ooh, mommy, I don't think we qualify for that. But it's nice to know it's there. That's the kind of thing I have to imagine that would pay off on a New Game Plus. I'm sure they'll let you carry those artifacts over. Alright. There was another one that I had forgotten about. Oh, there are a couple, actually. There's the Cannibal Demon in Palamedes, and there's the Treasure on the Far Continent on Manon Reef. Let's knock those out. Do we remember where Palamedes is? I feel like that's one of those seaside places, but I don't remember at this point. Near Haria, right. I know, I think I told you at the time, Grail, but I got Dan to play Tales of Berseria, which he loved and he played multiple times. And Dan is someone who has gotten so into the metagame of Pokemon, so I figured if anyone's going to get into the system, it'll be him. And he did for a while, but then even Dan, when he got down to the last few, like, trophies and challenges for, like, doing certain numbers of crazy, like, G-unions and stacks and all of the stuff that they need you to do in order to, like, fully work the system, even Dan, who is the person for whom that system was meant, threw up his hands eventually and said, I understand what they're trying to do. It's too much for me, so I'm not going to do it. And so that's my point of pride there, because Like, I'm man enough to recognize it's not the kind of system for me, but for someone like Dan to say that, then I think like it's a matter where maybe you want to reconsider the nature of the system. Well, this is nice. Yes, so I think those 2 side quests that I'd forgotten are both in this direction, so we'll be able to give it the old 1-2 punch. And then I figure, now that we have better kit and a lower difficulty, why not at least try a run at Jude and Milla before we breach the gates of the EX dungeon for a 3rd time? Oh, wow. Was there anything in particular that inspired you to do that, Grail? Are you a fan of the anime or just coming to it from scratch? That's one of those where, like, I'm so intimidated by long-running shonen anime and manga in general. So much so that I'm almost afraid of getting drawn into it because then I wonder, like, oh, will I become addicted and that'll just consume my life? So Bleach is one that I've never gotten into myself, but obviously quite a few people have.
Treasure chest from the far continent?
Right then. Eisen, how do we go about opening it?
I'd still be happy to cut it open, you know.
Don't. You'll probably end up cutting what's inside.
There's a password. It means wealth in the language of the far continent. Von Eltia.
Aha!
What? That's all it took? Talk about anticlimactic. I didn't know the ship's name came from the far continent.
Yeah. An engineer who helped design the ship was familiar with technology from there. He probably supplied the name. And by that bizarre twist of fate, Siegfried came into Eifried's hands.
So what's inside? Anything interesting?
It's a book.
Oh, that's so lame. You're killing me here.
It's really old, but it's written in a language I can read.
Is it the Earthen Historia? Oh,
Research
no.
notes on Siegfried and its special abilities.
Wait, so it's like a manual for using Siegfried?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Some of it's missing, but I'm pretty sure.
Another twist of fate!
Fee, keep going. Let's hear more.
Young contrarian Grail. Yep, that sounds familiar. I feel like a lot of us were cast in that mold when we were young. But good news is more than a few of us grew out of it, so that's something. How about Zatch Bell? You ever get into that? I remember that was one that was in syndication on, like, I think Toonami or something back when I was coming up. And so I never saw it regularly enough to really get into all of the arcs, but I thought the idea of just the spell book and the familiars with the spell book and just like the whole world they created was very cool and interesting to young Aaron. So that was one that I was always delighted whenever it was popped on to see where things were going. Yeah, absolutely. And it's never too late to, broaden your cultural horizons by going back to those things, right? I feel like that's half the fun of it sometimes.
Believed to be a relic from the Avarost period, Siegfried utilizes an embedded formula to enable its wielder to manipulate mana. The commonly held belief is that Siegfried can alter, and thereby amplify, the mana of its host. But this is only its most basic capability, which is utilized to initiate and control its true functions.
Its true functions? Does that mean it can do more?
It looks that way. Our analysis suggests that Siegfried was originally created as a specialized anti-dragon weapon. Oh my, the plot thickens. To that end, Siegfried can fire volitional bullets that bestow certain special effects upon its targets. These bullets, made from crystallized mana, can cause disabilities depending on the intent with which they have been imbued.
Such a cool idea. And such a cool name, volitional bullets.
Sever power links, and one capable of temporarily blocking out the influence of malevolence.
We know that one all too
Bullets
well.
that block malevolence, huh?
Does it say where these bullets are?
No. Sorry. The rest is too worn to read.
That's all right.
We can't be sure if it's true or not, but it sounds plausible at least.
Eisen, how about we go looking for those bullets?
No, I have no need for them.
But if you had them, you could...
I have other things I need to worry about. And anyway, Siegfried belongs to Zavid now. Laphicet, next time you see him, I want you to tell him what you read.
Are you sure?
Please.
I know and have deep-seated affection for 4 of those bullets.
Even if he has to cross the whole world looking for them.
All right.
Oh,
I'll tell him.
it's true.
I promise.
Lo, is this another twist of fate in the making? But how, oh how will it turn out?
Can't you be serious just once in your life?
I think she's just saying Eisen's doing the right thing, in her own weird way. And it's true that nobody knows what the future holds.
That's for sure. And I like it that way.
Do you really mean that?
I do. It would be pretty boring to know everything that's coming, don't you think?
That's fair.
I love the end of that because if you watched the lecture Dan and I gave on JRPGs at PAX West, one of the things that we talked about at the end in terms of distinguishing Final Fantasy from Tales is I really do feel like one of the clear-cut distinctions you can draw is that Final Fantasy is very directly concerned with fate and what it takes to overcome it in like clearly objectified metaphysical terms. Like what is this god who embodies fate and how do we kill it? Whereas the Tales games really care much more about individual actions and like they were saying with volitional bullets in the Siegfried, like what it takes to figure out like the nature of your volition and coordinate with others and understand the actions that people took in the past in order to chart the actions of the future. And fate like rarely enters into the equation at all. So for all of the Tales characters here to just be chatting about, yeah, fate just doesn't really matter. Fuck that. It's like very in keeping with that sensibility of the series, I think. Also really touching, just speaking more about the ever-evolving manifold of Zavid's relationship with Eisen, the idea of knowing that, like, Siegfried was meant, or is at least presumed to have been meant as an anti-dragon weapon. That idea that Zavid knows Eisen is fated to become a dragon, and he's made this pact to, eventually help Eisen out with his fate. It kind of gives an interesting twist to the idea that Zavid is carrying around the Siegfried for 2 reasons. One is to stave off his own malevolence and be able to continue to act according to his good intentions and not become a dragon himself. And the other is kind of in service of Eisen and carrying around the weapon to be able to uphold his promise to Eisen at the end of the day and kill him when he becomes a dragon. I think that's really touching, showing the interconnectedness of their relationship. I don't think so, Grail. I think I mean, that's like my whole reading of Tales of the Abyss, right? Which, if and when we do go on an adventure through the game together, we can talk to death, but I don't see Van as fighting against fate in the same way that characters in Final Fantasy do, because I think for Van, even though the score is this abstracted prediction of the way in which the world is going to evolve, I think what he feels powerless in the face of is much more to do with the advancement of history that kind of marginalizes and reduces the individual to nothing, as witnessed by everything that happened with Hod and in his own past. And so he's trying to like figure out how to reshape the world in order to rectify that. Final Fantasy, it's, I mean, at least in terms of how Dan characterized it in the lecture, and I have no reason to disagree with him, it's much more of like fate as this kind of inescapable divine force that isn't really the fault or a representation of anyone in the world, so much as something that is kind of like prior to and beyond the world, and everyone in the world just kind of has to deal with. And I think even though Van talks that way about the score a lot, and I think that's how, like if you asked Van in this context, like, hey Van, are you a Final Fantasy character? And you could explain to Van, obviously, everything that that means and entails, he might tell you yes, but I think, at least on my reading of the game, I would say that's sort of him, like, having some cognitive dissonance with himself and not being totally honest about how it was that he was hurt and what it is that he's trying to do. It's funny to think of Velvet and Shulk getting along, but there is definitely a certain similar streak of empowering the individualism in everyone versus fate in both of them, isn't there? Maybe not the same interest in engineering, but a similar perspective on the world in some ways, for sure. Although in a cosmic primordial sort of way, Velvet does kind of end up becoming something divine adjacent at the end with a Nominat, whereas Shulk directly rejects the offer to become a god, so maybe not the same through and through, but similar on some level. Oh yeah, and see, just going back to your anime messages, like, I'm some little anime fella, especially back when I was watching Zatch Bell as a kid, where I couldn't even have told you there was like 300 something chapters of it. I could definitely see how, like, if it's that much of a commitment, you really need to either have immediate buy-in or maybe not spend your time on it. I feel that. I love that perspective on Bleach too, by the way. I feel like, I mean, this is something that's been on my mind a lot with JRPGs, and I think when I do what I'm going to do next for the written part of Tales of Praxis, which I think is going to be a write-up of my part of the PAX talk that's on Tales of Arise, I think I might talk around this a little bit. Like, so many people, I think, are eager to just reduce and comment on really rich and interesting stories just by pigeonholing them in cliches that they lean into in one way or another. And that just doesn't strike me as especially interesting or fair. I mean, I know this is of no surprise to you, Grail, because we talk about this every other day on the stream, but needless to say, I applaud your approach to it, and I hope that more people over time will continue to take that approach, because I think that's when you start to get the valuable insights about what the stories mean to you, as opposed to, reasons to incentivize yourself not to engage with them in the first place, which, especially when you phrase it that way, seems like a weird enterprise on which to spend your time. I'm going to quickly plug in my controller just because it's the second one, and hilariously, like we probably all saw, it now too is running low on battery, so I don't want us to fully die here. Alright. The controller has been jacked into the hard line, so We should be good on that front. Gluttony! Oh, that's right. The Venomization side quest. I forgot about this one.
Sorry to cut you down.
Well, that was the first easy mode battle that truly felt easy in the pure sense, but I'm not complaining, especially when we're trying to save time. Yeah, I feel you, Grail. I get exactly what you mean. Because I have a whole lot of love for Final Fantasy 16. It definitely has a lot of, sex and gore and all those things in it. I don't think that's what makes it good or interesting. And I think you're right, in the same way that we're talking about people shorthanding things according to cliches or tropes or what they expect or are looking for. There is this weird kind of, on that front, I would almost call it a bad inference, where I think the desire that people feel on which that's based is oftentimes a good-intentioned one. It's the sentiment, something that we've talked about on the stream, this idea that as I'm growing up and I'm becoming more mature and I'm thinking about different things regarding my place in the world, I'm also going to be interested in different stories and looking for different messages from them. And that, to me, is a really reasonable desire to have. And then the bad inference is the step of saying, like, oh, the kind of content that wouldn't be permissible for kids to see, like excessive blood and gore and sex, could only be shown in a mature story, and therefore the themes of the story are going to be mature in the grown-up way that I'm looking for. And that just, like, it would be nice if it were that easy to find mature stories, but there's no direct explanatory relationship there as far as I can see. And so, like, it's fine if a story happens to have mature themes and also include that other stuff, but 100% when people just put their flag in the ground and say this is good and mature because it includes things like an M rating and people swearing and a lot of people dying, that it saddens me for the discourse, but it also saddens me for them, because I mean, if you probe it a little further, you're going to get so much more out of it, and you're going to get more of a cipher and insight by which you can understand what it is that you're really looking for from stories, and you can be more discerning and deliberative in terms of which stories you choose to engage in. And again, spoken as someone who has a lot of love for Final Fantasy 16, less love, but also a lot of love for Game of Thrones, but I totally know the type of person that you're talking about. But again, notice something else that we talked about on Tales of Praxis is I think it's also totally okay for people to find their way into stories for whatever reason that interests them. And if they're willing to have the conversation, probing it a little deeper about, like, wow, let's unpack why that's really interesting or see how this connects with that. Like, that can be a totally sound way of uncovering more layers of meaning and helping to articulate what it is beyond the cliches and tropes that really engages you about these stories, if anything, which, notice, is a big part of what we're doing here on Tales of Praxis with the Tales games. So I think that can be a way to help at least to ameliorate the issue that we're talking about, if nothing else.
Whew. I don't know how, but we managed to beat it.
That was a really good artifact we got, by the way. I'm glad we picked that up.
Sounds kind of like me, doesn't it?
So you've eaten a few cows, or demons, whatever. When you're hungry, you eat.
The only ones who put any moral weight on it are humans. Personally, I wouldn't sweat it too much. What are you trying to say?
It's fine. I don't really care if I'm seen as a bad guy.
I don't really know how to put it, but I sensed a kind of strength inside that demon. Like a determination to continue living. It was powerful and frightening, but I don't think it was bad.
Figures.
I have to make a note and then I'll tell you why, because this is something that might be interesting to write and think about in the future. I was just thinking about, it's a really nice coda to some of the stuff that we talked about at the end of the main game, and therefore really great content for a little side quest at the end of the game, such as this. The idea that the party was reflecting on, that Velvet consumes and devours kind of according to instinct, and I would say importantly in a way that's kind of pre-moral, like the mode in which she's consuming is something that's like foundational to the nature of the world and more animal than the system of human morality can account for. And remember, a big part of what we talked about is characterizing the ending, where after she defeats Artorias, she embraces a Nominat and creates this kind of primordial foundation for the world, is that it's really her interaction with a Nominat and this kind of irrational basis and support for human nature that makes possible the extension of Mautelis's blessing, and then subsequently the journey of Saray the Shepherd to actually redeem humanity and help them determine their path in the world in a way that's only possible because of the foundation that Velvet and Nominat have laid for things beforehand. And so I feel like there's an interesting kind of sequence that you could put together between these two games, a sort of three-step sequence where what Velvet is doing with these characters and the constant theme of this game in terms of consumption and the instinctual appetites of existence as kind of the preconditions for life. Even in the Dark Turtles quest, like, did you listen to the end of the Dark Turtles quest? All of that even was about the nature of what it is to be consumed, whether consumed by capitalism or literally consumed as a turtle and everything in between. And so the idea that that can be kind of an instinctual and animalistic foundation upon which then Saray's act of purification can form a sort of rationalistic, like second layer, saying, okay, now that people have the capacity to be fully in touch with their emotions, let's give them the ability to reflect honestly on what it is that they want versus what it is that they do in the world and deliberate on that, which is just what it means to purify the malevolence of someone. And then once that's done, you get to the third step of moral deliberation between different pure parties, which is what you get at the end of Tales of Berseria, when you get moments like Alicia and Sergei, like, in the strategy room negotiating with each other to create a kind of harmony and moral order between Rowlands and Highland in the wake of war, or even in Alicia's story where you have kind of the existence and persistence of people with different moral frameworks between Alicia and the Seraphim and Simone, and even the werewolf fella, whose name I'm blanking on right now. Grail, you can shout it out in the chat. So I think, thinking about the way in which these two games tell the story of building up the capacity for human nature, I think I increasingly feel like seeing it as that kind of stepwise process, and even spreading it across 2 games really helps you to pick that apart in a cool way. Lunar, yes, thank you, Lunar. That's who it is. I have to wonder then, and this would be something to dwell on in an analysis too, like if we think that the games are scaffolding for us what it is to get a full picture of human nature from the animal to the rationalistic to the moral, I have to imagine there's also some kind of meaning in the fact that we start out, if we're playing these games chronologically, chronologically meaning in the order in which they were presented, not in terms of the fictional world's chronology. Like it's got to be meaningful also that we start out with that picture of rationalistic deliberation and morality in Tales of Berseria, and then it's only after that that we go back to the foundations in the more animalistic. I don't have a sense off the top of my head of what meaning we would find in that kind of ordering, but it strikes me as something that just has to be significant. It is what, yeah, I've said this in basically every side quest, but I think it bears repeating many times, Grail, because it feels like a joke until you realize that it's not. And I think understanding it as a serious theme and motif can really help us to tie together a lot of what the story is genuinely trying to say. It is, I think, all about different forms of eating and hunger and consumption. Like, remember, the last thing that a Nominat says to Velvet before Velvet embraces him and they create the New World Order is, Velvet, I'm so hungry. I never got to satisfy any of my desires or hungers in my life. I was just a sick kid and I was used and I'm so hungry and I'm so empty. And I think that says a lot about what it is that the game is meditating on. Yeah, and I feel that, Grail. And sometimes, like, it's certainly the case that first impressions can just be hard to shake sometimes. So I think that's totally fair. And I do feel like part of what's hard about it, the more that I'm reflecting on it, is we talked at the beginning of this duology about how we wanted to see both of these games in a vacuum in terms of stories to be told on their own terms and in their own context, but then that we also wanted to see them in conversation with one another. I'll be honest, maybe it's just because Zestiria came out first and Berseria came out second, but I feel like I still, even after playing Berseria, have a pretty clear picture in my mind in terms of how Zestiria works on its own terms and what it wants to say in a vacuum, and that feels coherent and compelling to me. I don't know how much I feel that way with Berseria. I'm sure that you could say those kind of standalone things about it, but maybe that's part of where your first impression that you're talking about comes from, Grail. This idea that if you just see the game on its own terms and in a vacuum, it does almost seem like they're kind of leaning into the edginess of the characters without a clear payoff to it. And casting them in the roles of villains while they're still the heroes of the story, like we talked about several streams ago. I think really for me, like, where the game really resonates and becomes memorable and something that, like, will stay with me is, oh, we finally got a fucking standardized powder! It only took going all the way back to Norman Island. Huh, well, interrupting my discussion with the real matter of the story. I was going to say, like, where I feel like, for me, the most thematically interesting content of the story is, like I've been talking about for the last little while, is in the conversation it has with Tales of Berseria. And so maybe part of it is just that, since it was in many ways designed with that in mind, seeing it on its own terms is like, it's like seeing part of a puzzle, right? Like, maybe part of it is that it feels incomplete, or like it doesn't come around to the different things it was hedging on, because when you're playing it just in its own context, you are only kind of seeing part of the picture. Maybe it wasn't meant to be seen as a standalone game. All right, let's give this another shot. Everyone's healed up. I'm anxious, but we are slightly higher levels now, and we are a difficulty ratchet down, and we have better kit, so I'm hoping we have a shot at least. But like Galaxy Brain, not that I'm saying I'm Galaxy Brain, but what I'm trying to say is like almost the opposite of that, funny enough. Like I think Zestiria, like even going back to that, like before I played Berseria, like when we talked through Zestiria at the end, I was really moved by it, and I felt like there was a lot to recommend it on its own terms. I feel like in a weird way, even though this came out after Zestiria, you might almost flip it, reverse it, and say like Zestiria exists to make Berseria better. Because Berseria, like we talked at the beginning, how it's not called Tales of Zestiria 2. It's called something different. It's meant to stand on its own terms. I wonder, and as we move on from it, I'll be continuing to think about, especially when I sit down to write something on it, like how much is that true? That Berseria really does tell its own story, independent of Zestiria. I don't know. I wanted to, and in fairness, I do. Like I think back to the first time I played it, when it first came out with my girlfriend at the time. And we got a lot out of it without having the background context of Zestiria. She had never played it. I didn't have it fresh in my mind, so I recognized it was playing with it, but not in the ways we've been talking about on the stream. And so I do still think there's a there, but it does feel like, in the spirit of what you were talking about, Grail, it feels a little edgier, maybe easier for us as audience members to lump it in with the tropes it's playing with, as opposed to thinking about it more richly than that.
Is there any chance the two of you are the harbinger of the end?
No, we're not. But the Harbinger has entrusted us with his battle.
We'll be able to dig into that when we get to the Zillias. No doubt about that. But look, we're already here in the Zillias. That happened so quickly.
The world will be destroyed, are you?
That's exactly what we're saying.
This Harbinger of the end, did he promise to send you back to your world if you won?
Look, we just have things left to do back in Rizamaxia.
I'm sure you do, but we've got unfinished business here in our world, too.
A girl and her pet? You really want to take us on?
Hey, Jude. Don't make it bad.
A human!
Please let us defeat you.
Such is the power of the Harbinger of the End. Perhaps now you see the gravity of this.
I know I made that joke last time, but come on, how many jokes about the name Jude do we have in our societal vernacular?
In place of the Harbinger of the End?
Let the battle of judgment begin! What are you two trying to do?
There you go. All right. That makes two, Grail. I'll give it to you. Well, it's still not easy as such, but if anything, they're just attacking less frequently and giving us more openings, which I have a feeling that alone will make the difference. Yeah, like, our boy Jude is just standing there half the time, which is excellent. Ugh. You know, we said it last time. It's still a great soundtrack. You know, I didn't start out as one of those elitist people, Grail. I think I kind of fell into it when I started playing more of the games on my own on harder modes, but for this kind of gameplay, I'm sure you're right. And especially with this gameplay system, like I feel like, I don't know what it is about this layout, but I feel like it's just harder for me to get the spacing right with some of these attacks. That said, I am the stubborn kind of person who, having come this far, is not going to switch at this point unless we really, really have to. And this is feeling like the kind of thing we can pull out. To be fair, I think Jude also should switch to semi-auto because a lot of his attacks are going in the wrong direction too. Yeah, maybe it is just an artifact of the way in which the 3D games are set up, so it's less of a failure of one's skill to play in semi-auto and more of just helping to manage the system as it's presented to you. So I do feel like that's part of where the issue is, like the attacks just go in like according to unpredictable vectors. You make a compelling argument, Grail. Aiming is for the weenies. Oh no! That was pretty cool. Bro, why? That was so many punches. I mean, Sigma is it's a sign for summations, right? So, do they each have, like, I mean, you would know this better than I, Grail. Do they each have their own forms of Tiger Blade that are, like, summed together for that attack or something? Too many mystic arts. Too many mystic arts. Oh yeah, I mean, if neither of them can learn a version of Tiger Blade, then there goes my theory out the window. I'll have to watch it more closely when they inevitably do it again, unless we can take down Jude before that. Oh, there it is. Let's see. Maybe part of it is it's like, it's kind of like a dual and complementary Tiger Blade at the end, where Milla starts at the bottom and Jude starts at the top. And as best I could see it that second time, they sort of switch positions. So it's sort of like between the two of them, they do one complete Tiger Blade. That's my best guess. And I can wrap my head around that being called Tiger Blade Sigma for the reasons I was talking about before. Like their movements sum to a Tiger Blade. Nothing to do with the earlier movements of the Mystic Art, but in terms of where it ends up. Yeah, look it up. Drop that knowledge. Oh, Jesus. Either they're getting stronger or I'm getting worse. Or both. Oh, but we have so many souls hanging out on the field. Oh, Velvet's okay. She just has, like, no health. Yeah, so... maybe a little less direct, but that strikes me as the same spirit, more or less. Not one of those totally out there translations. That's not what I meant. I wanted one of these. I don't know, I feel like we talked our way into understanding the English one, though. The Japanese one is just, as we might expect, a bit wordier and more epic sounding and less direct in its content. My friend to whom I was speaking about Tales titles earlier today, though, he made a point which made a lot of sense and I hadn't considered before just because I don't speak or understand Japanese. But he said he wondered whether because it's like a pictorial language and you can convey more information per symbol than what you can in English, if the names just translate into wordier things in English because each symbol is able to convey more information, and so kind of the language itself is more accustomed to slightly longer expressions with more detail and description than you get in equivalent English names. Like it's on my list to ask Dan about that, but intuitively it made sense. Shut up, Jude! Shut up, Jude! Hey, Jude! Leave us alone! Well, we couldn't get them to target the same person, but at least we took them down at more or less the same time as a consequence.
I think we're done here.
Milla!
This fight is over. Victory goes to the woman there.
Oh, another Shine Spirit!
I take it you're the harbinger of the end.
Like the one in the Heavenly Steppe.
I am the one who delivers judgment upon this world.
These must be Seraphim, right?
I shall grant you one wish. Whatever it be, speak it now.
I want you to return these two back to their world.
Oh.
Why? You said you have things to do back home, right? That's why.
Are you certain? I can grant you anything your heart desires, even the chance to turn back time and undo the past.
No, I won't run away. Not from my past, and not from the wrongs I've done. That is my decision.
Clive wants to know your location.
Then the judgment has been dealt. I sense no malice in your will. As such, the world shall not meet its demise.
Huh?
You see, your answer was the true test of judgment.
We were charged with drawing out your true innermost wish.
Then the Harbinger's a fool. I'm the Lord of Calamity here.
And what of it? Not all demons must be evil, and not all heroes must be good.
So if it is a Seraph, that makes a lot of sense coming from a Seraph, because remember, the Seraphim are those in play in Tales of Berseria, and that ethos that not all demons must be evil and not all heroes must be good is not only at the core of Berseria, but also pretty much directly what Saray arrives at as his answer at the end of that game.
Humans are complex creatures, as capable of love as they are of hatred, and committing sin as often as acts of charity. Goodness and malice are but two halves of one whole, the line between which is ever shifting.
Well then,
Like a
you're as
Nominat
bad
in
as it
Velvet.
gets. You were ready to destroy the world. Had the one who answered fallen under the shifting notion of evil.
Indeed. But the good within that same single person carries the opportunity to save the world as well.
That's a terrible gamble.
No, I always believed it would turn out this way.
Me too. I trusted you would all do the right thing in the end. Jude has good instincts when it comes to humans.
That's too bad, because I'm not a human.
You're not? Well, that still doesn't really change anything.
No matter if you're a human, a spirit, or a demon lord.
Yeah, that doesn't matter at all.
Come. I have kept you two away from your world for far too long. It is finally time for me to return you to where you belong.
Oh! It was the golden penguin the whole time. And to be fair, it I don't have their exact words in my head anymore, but and obviously you know more about the context of Zillia than I do by a country mile, but it sounded like the lines that they were calling out to each other during that joint mystic art, Jude and Milla, were basically in the spirit of that. So I think they still got it in there as context for the like the meaning of the art, if you will. What it was expressing beyond its just literal representation as some kind of complex tiger blade.
Is that Goldapen talking just now? When the end times come, a talking penguin will declare judgment upon the sinful. Goldapen is said to be an ominous creature that signals the end of the world.
Oh yeah, I remember all that now.
I can't believe that Goldapen was the harbinger of the end.
That was a close call. If Velvet had devoured everything like usual, the world would have ended.
Hey, I'm not the Reaper here.
Anyway, I'm glad Jude and Milla were able to go home.
Definitely. Although, I'm not sure I'll be able to eat penguin meat ever again. Indeed.
Seems reasonable.
Wouldn't want to accidentally nosh on the harbinger of the end.
Happy endings for penguin kind and humankind and demon kind and malachkind alike. Everybody wins. Proof of defeating visitors from another world. They will travel on, though, as long as their mission remains. It's kind of funny, especially when we're thinking about comparing and contrasting Berseria with Zestiria, that the Lord of Calamity and putative villain of this game is the one with the ethical backbone to insist on sending the interlopers from another world home to their own native environment, whereas the Jesus stand-in in Tales of Zestiria meets Jude and Sophie and is like, okay, hope you find your way home at some point. I'm gonna leave you here at the bottom of the calyx now. I'll check back on you to see what happens after I beat Heldolf. Bye, guys. Not quite what you would expect from the two of them. I was thinking the same thing, Grail. So what I figure is we're already 20 minutes past, but I'm glad we saw through that fight with Milla and Jude. I do think between our re-kitting and our leveling up, we should, hopefully, cross your fingers and knock on wood, be able to knock down the enemies that the EX dungeon is putting in front of us in the time limit. So I think, especially since we've gotten so much to chew on in all the other side content, I feel like we have to give it another shot. And given that I'm not going to be around on Friday or Monday, I'm going to say, let's do that, dig in, and try to give Berseria its due and get all the way through on Wednesday. And that'll be a really nice and satisfying place on which to wrap it. And then come a week from that Wednesday, so the Wednesday of next week, we will start our journey into Tales of Graces, which I could not be more excited about. I know it was quite a journey to decide on a game, but like I emphasized many, many times during the voting, we really can't go wrong, and I think it's going to be a very fun one to counterbalance some of the stuff we've been exploring in the last 4. So, many good times ahead. That's true. I guess there is a sense in which they could count on Jade to figure it out. And it is kind of funny and a testament to Jade's character, I guess, that even having just met him, like, the party could trust in Jade to be the kind of person who would sort that out, because Jade just exudes that well-earned confidence in his own knowledge and capacity to manage unexpected situations. Still, though, the image of leaving them at the bottom of the calyx to figure it out on their own. I mean, we could talk ourselves into thinking of it as, the Shepherd Saray wanting to empower everyone's dream and ability to do things their own way. So Jade wants to figure it out with Sophie. He's going to leave them there to do that. I get it, but also kind of a funny point of contrast between the two games. A full march of Berseria. What do you mean? Am I missing something? What would make it a march of Berseria? Do you mean in terms of number of days? Because this was stream 31. We're on the 31st stream right now. No, there's not a month with 32 days. Unless I'm the crazy person. February has 28 and sometimes 29, but otherwise it's just 30 or 31, my man. But we can have, perhaps even more fitting for Tales of Berseria, we can have a full March plus an April Fool's, April 1st. How about that? Because most of the time it's felt really rich and contentful, and sometimes it's just silly and we laugh and roll with the jokes. And that's all part of the context of the Tales journey in general, and Tales of Berseria as much as anything. Well, we have a game plan. Already, unsurprisingly, it looks a little different than the game plan with which we kicked off the stream. Yeah, maybe it is the Mandela effect. You can never escape that, Grail, so at least you know it's not your fault. That's funny, though. That's a Mandela effect-ism that I've never encountered before, so now I'll have to keep an eye out for it. What do we have to wrap things up with? We have a game plan. I'll share one more time if you want to read the latest written analysis in Tales of Praxis, Tales of Destiny in conversation with Tales of Vesperia, and see not just what I've been thinking about for the last while, but also what we've been talking about on the stream, what amazingly thoughtful gamers like Grail and Pottery, thinking of you, Pottery, if you're watching the VOD, have been talking about for the last while. Check that out. Leave a comment if you have thoughts or questions on it. If you want to talk about it live, always happy to dig into it on the stream also. But to finally wrap things up in terms of the game plan as it stands now, so that we're all on the same page, this Wednesday, we will be marshaling all of our willpower and equipment and know-how and going back to the Heavenly Steppe to try to overcome that last obstacle which stands before us, besides the remaining Code Red demons. But unless we find ourselves with a bunch of extra time on Wednesday, I'm not going to belabor the stream for that. We'll undertake that. Then we'll say a big, heartfelt thank you to Tales of Berseria. Then I'll be off hanging out with my dad on Friday and Monday. Then on Wednesday, we will be back to kick off our next journey into Tales of Graces. It'll be a good one. It'll be a rich and diverse one, just like Tales of Berseria was. Maybe not just like, but it'll give us plenty to talk about. No doubt about that. And it's such a pleasure to go on all of these journeys with you. And I'm so excited to be venturing off into yet another one. Grail, you have a nice night too, my friend. I'm thinking of you. You might just be month illiterate. Either that or like it's one of those like bell curve or horseshoe things where either you're month illiterate or you've thought too much about months and know too much information about them. So like you're breaking the brains of everyone else around you. I know sometimes they're a little messy with the weeks, so you could be right there. What will the EX dungeon hold? Will the characters reach heaven? Will Grail determine the total numeracy of months and their days and what is allocated to each one? We'll find out all of this and more on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's always a fun time, especially in the post game, and then we can put our big boy analysis hats back on and go into the next Tales game after we've cleansed and reset for a week. So Always a pleasure. Always many different kinds of adventures. That's right. It's the next time on. And then we'll get the previously on Wednesday. It's all just a shonen unto itself. That's why we were talking about shonens earlier in the episode. As much as it is a stream, it's an episode. All right, dear friends. Always a pleasure. I'm Aaron Suduko, founder of With a Terrible Fate. I'll see you back here in 45 hours. Till then, be good, game well, think well. See you soon. Bye.